with my arms around you. Let me gaze into your eyes and tell you just how much I love you. Can't you see that you are meant for me? Oh yeah. You don't need to say yeah. This is not a game. Say you love me the same.
Hi, this is Sean. As you probably know, the great Barry Harris left us a couple of weeks ago now, and I got to study with him for many years and spend some time with him. So I thought it would be nice just to put together some favourite stories of things that had happened to me in class and out of class, and it may give some of you who didn't know him an insight into what it was like to learn from him and spend time with him. And those of you who did know him or had met him, maybe it'll remind you of what he was like and how much fun he was to be around as well, especially if you weren't in trouble in class at the time. It all began for me when I was invited to go to a Barry Harris workshop by a friend of mine. And we went down there. I didn't really know what to expect. Of course, I'd heard of Barry Harris. I didn't know anything about his system or how his education worked or anything like that. And it was a real shock when I got there, because Barry would talk about something, bring somebody to the piano. I remember him pointing to a guy, "You, come sit here." And I thought, oh my goodness, am I next? And I didn't know what was going on that first day. And Barry had a cold as well. He was finding it hard to speak loudly for anyone further back. And I left there thinking, I love these sounds, but I don't know what's going on. So I spent the next year seeking out anyone who could shed any light on it. I met a guy called Gary Kavanagh, who became a good friend of mine, who plays the trumpet and could show me some of the soloing stuff. And then I went back next time Barry was in town, because I studied with Barry in London and in Rome. He would visit Europe often in those days. And I didn't realize that I was really caught out because I didn't know anything about his chord movement system, which is one of the most beautiful things about what Barry taught and played, of course. And I later found out that he does this to you once if he likes you. So he gave me a tune, or there was a tune for the singers class. I did all right in the piano class. I did all right in the improv class. I thought I was done for the day. And I heard this voice while I was at the back of the room. "Sean, I'm going to need you to come over here, accompany these singers." And I thought, oh no, this means trouble. So it was a song I'd never heard before. That often happened in the singers classes. And after a few goes round, he wanted it in about 8 keys, 8 keys, something, for different singers. And that's when I realized maybe I wasn't as strong as I thought I was after all. In fact, I was falling apart. And I had people phoning me afterwards to ask me if I was okay. Brilliant. However, even though he gave me a really hard time, it was definitely out of love. I never had any question that it was anything other than that. And he was playing in London that evening. And he even said to me, "I didn't even mean to do that to you, but do you know why I play?" And I said, "No, I suppose I don't know why you play." And he said, "Well, I was playing with and he gave me the dirtiest look you ever saw." And I said, "I'll show you." And so he was clearly motivated by that style of proving, let me show you how you don't know anything, and let that be motivation for you to prove to yourself and to me that you can improve. And he said to me very clearly, I never forgot it, he said, "After that happens to somebody in my class, next time I come back to town," which in London could be a year, and if I was due to see him in Rome, it could be 6 months, so it could be certainly a few months between some of these visits. Either somebody sorted it out, or I never see them again. And he was really saying to me, "You decide which one it is, son. It's up to you." And he was so right, because that became the catalyst for me to just get it together and not be in that position again where I didn't know what was going on. So I developed some principles, and really I didn't develop anything new. I just developed some rules for myself of how to get through these standards, and learned some things from other students in Rome as well, and improved. Always was worried about those singers classes, but it got better, it got easier. And actually, that was the class in the day where I thought I would learn the least. As it turned out, it was probably the place I learned the most about fluency. I would take big groups of my own students to hear Barry play in the evenings. I still to this day cannot understand where his stamina came from. He would teach a whole day in London and go and play a performance in the evening, not leave that place till after midnight. Sometimes I think we would leave there, 12:30, and he would wake up and do it all again. One of my friends described it as a young man's game. I think it is. And I couldn't keep up with him. Every time he left town, when he left London, I would just go and lie down, just try and get my strength back. One day he said to me, I'm just trying to figure out what time my flight lands in New York from London, because I think I can go straight back and teach my class after I get home. And I was thinking, well, how have you done this? You've just taken a trip. You've come to London. I think he may have even gone to another city beforehand. You've taught classes for about 3 days in a row, played, I think, 4 or 5 nights in a row, and those nights have coincided with the days as well. And you're going back to New York and you want to go straight to your class. And he probably did it as well. There was no stopping him. If he wanted to do it, he was doing it. One thing is that nobody could say, nobody could make him do something he didn't want to do, or stop him from doing something that he was really hell-bent on doing, and he did it. That was one of the great things about him, is that persistence and that stamina that took him through and was an example to all of us. I remember a workshop in Rome, and I had a particularly bad back beforehand. So, as the worst back I can remember me ever having. And I said, well, how am I going to tell somebody like Barry, who's suffering with their health, that I couldn't come because I had a bad back? And I got there. And actually, he took me to his acupuncturist. We drove, Luciano in Rome, drove right to the other side of Rome to this ancient house. It looked like it hadn't been changed since the 50s. And this doctor came out and did acupuncture on both of us. And actually, I felt amazing. And while we were staying in Rome, I would often be in the same hotel as Barry. And we would have breakfast together. And, he talked about music all the time. He talked about his experiences, his past, experiences with other musicians, all the time. He just loves talking music. Same at what we called family dinners in London. We would have, the students that knew Barry well, and sometimes we'd get together for dinner. And he would just be full of stories of the old days, just wonderful. It was like sitting and witnessing a history book of jazz. Somebody who could blow away all the myths and was really there with all the greats, with Cannonball Adderley, with Dexter Gordon, with Miles Davis, with Dizzy Gillespie, with Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young, playing with all these people and more. It's unbelievable. The workshops were normally long days, often hard days if you stayed for the whole day. Some of us would stay for the whole day in London. Others would maybe creep in and out. If they were horn players, they could sort of come to the horn class and leave. Some of them, some would come to the singers class and leave. The piano players, some of us would stay the whole day. It was long and it was hard. Same in Rome. They were long, hard days. I remember one day I'd arrived just in time for the start of the workshop, probably 10 minutes late from London because of my flight. I've been awake since 3 a.m. trying to get there, and the workshop should have gone on, I think, until 6 o'clock in the evening. Barry was still going on at 9:30 when I was packing up and leaving. So, where are you going? There are no excuses. I was exhausted, but he wasn't. The really special times in the workshops were where Barry would start to play, and students, doesn't matter where they were sitting, everybody would gather around. You couldn't see the piano. You had to find a way to see the piano and just make your way in. And it was just wonderful. It was a sound that I don't feel is captured on recordings, and I don't know why. Just being in the presence of that level of mastery, this far away from it, just watching his massive hands playing the piano, and just the sound, the type of sound coming out of it, which most of us couldn't produce anything like, was fascinating, and everybody was affected by it, and it made you want to work more and get closer to it if at all possible. Now, one thing about Barry was his hands. so big. His thumb was it went in a direction that my thumb just can't go, and his other fingers just... I remember we were in Rome once, sitting at a table just in a break, and I thought he was going to impart some sort of amazing wisdom, and he said, "Son," I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got damn small hands." He took his huge hand and swallowed my whole hand in it, and I felt like a baby. But he had massive hands, and I haven't. And the great thing about his system is he particularly says these small moves and things we're learning, they're fine for people with any size hands. You don't have to have massive hands to play jazz if you know these things I'm teaching you. And he was right. You can do so much without huge hands if you have a strategy to move chords around. And that was a great thing about him. Chords from melodies, melodies from chords, as people sometimes say. And I hadn't really heard that before and witnessed it until I met Barry. My students often comment on Barry Harris videos that they've seen on YouTube, and they say, "Oh, it seems a bit tough. He doesn't seem to be very easy on these students." Is that how it was? Yes. Yes, absolutely, as I said. But it was done out of love, and there was a message in it that some people are afraid to impart. And the message was unspoken. The message was raise your standard. There's a reason why I can't call something out and you can't play it quickly. And it was an invitation to do that, to raise the standard and to commit more and to have no excuses and to just learn stuff. And to be able to grab things quickly, not take as long as you want to think about stuff, to get out of your head and not have everything explained to you. But if you worked on it enough, the answers would come. And I had conversations with him about that. And that's exactly how he felt. You know, if you believe and you just do the work and practice what I'm showing you, the answers will come. Praise came rarely, but when it came, boy, did it mean something, because it didn't come for a while. Probably the first few years I was getting yelled at. I remember one day saying to him, "I didn't get yelled at today." And he said, "You must be doing something right then." And as time went on, I got the occasional compliment, and it meant everything. I remember one day he said to me, "You know, I was proud of you, the way you accompanied that singer's class." And then another day he said, "You play the piano real nice." And wow, Barry Harris just told me that. It meant everything, because he didn't dish praise out for no reason or just in order to make you feel good. He wasn't going to praise you for that. He was going to make you work for it. And I appreciate that, and I will continue to work for it because he instilled that in me. One night we were at the club in London listening to Barry play. It was me, some friends, a lot of students, and I don't know if he'd given me a particularly tough time that day, but I had the devil in me. I was a bit younger, and he had a song for every country. And he said, "Go on, anybody, call out a country." And I had the devil in me. I said, "India." And he said, "Yeah, I did have a song for India." And he said, "I'll be glad when you go back to India." Brilliant. The whole crowd went crazy. And that was Barry. He knew how to control a crowd. He was funny. He was enjoyable to watch. The performances were full of humor and comedy. Very different to studying with him. When you went to see him perform, it was fun and it was supposed to be enjoyed. Sometimes jazz musicians forget about that, and there's no fun going on at all. He hadn't forgotten that. He liked that, and he liked to have fun. He played a song once for a lady in the audience, and I sometimes had the privilege. He always had somebody to help him on stage and stuff like that. And occasionally they would allow me, it would become my privilege to do it, to walk Barry to stage. And we just had, even in those few minutes, amazing conversations. And I remember saying to him one day, "You know, Barry, I've known you for so many years. You just met this young lady and you played a song for her. You've never dedicated anything to me." And he said, "I ain't gonna neither." Perfect. He always had the right thing to say at the right moment and had me in stitches with laughter very often. And I learned a lot from him, and I will miss him very much. Already do.
Let me put my arms around you. Let me gaze into your eyes and tell you just how much I love you. Can't soaring through space was a heavenly place. Make my dream come true. Hey now, be with me my whole life. Hey, hey, nothing more for me to say. There's nothing else. It's lovely. Oh my baby, just take your time, make up your mind, please be kind. For you're my queen, little queen, you fulfill my one dream. Come aboard my ship, for true. Come aboard my ship, for true. Come aboard my ship. Let's go on this trip. For trip. There's nothing like being on a trip. Paradise especially. Come aboard my ship. For a trip. The sopranos will say, to paradise. Sopranos. To paradise. I know we got a couple of sopranos. You ladies, now somebody's got to be a soprano. To paradise, please. You're mighty weak, though. Well, the altos, you say, to paradise, altos. You mean stay out of this, huh? Now, you tenors up high, you will say, to paradise, tenors. And the baritones will say, to paradise, say it. Basses will say, to paradise. Basses, to paradise. Everybody has to know, let's do it now. Come aboard my ship, for a trip. Come aboard my ship, oh yeah, for this wonderful trip. Let's do it now, softly. Somebody didn't get enough to drink in here.